God damn it!
Hey, stupid jerk! I'm singing a song here! Forrest, what are you doing here? Damn!
What happens when you give a simple man extraordinary circumstances and tell America's most complicated stories through his eyes? Forrest Gump wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural phenomenon that made audiences laugh, cry, and question everything they knew about destiny. These are 15 incredible facts that prove sometimes the most unlikely heroes create the most unforgettable journeys. Fact 1. The novel nobody wanted to film. Forrest Gump started as a novel so weird that Hollywood rejected it for years. Winston Groom's 1986 book featured a much darker, cynical Forrest who becomes an astronaut, chess master, and professional wrestler. The original story included profanity, sexual situations, and political commentary that made studios nervous. Producer Wendy Finerman spent 6 years trying to get the project greenlit, facing constant rejection from executives who couldn't see commercial potential in a story about a mentally challenged man stumbling through American history. The breakthrough came when she convinced Robert Zemeckis to read the material after his Back to the Future success. Zemeckis saw the emotional core beneath the episodic structure and knew exactly how to transform the cynical novel into an optimistic celebration of American resilience. Sometimes the projects that seem impossible to sell become the ones that sell everything. Fact 2. Tom Hanks' accent laboratory. Tom Hanks didn't just create Forrest's voice, he engineered it from scratch. The distinctive Alabama accent came from studying Michael Connor Humphreys, the young actor who played Forrest as a child. Hanks spent hours listening to Humphreys speak, learning his natural inflections and speech patterns to create seamless continuity between child and adult versions. The accent wasn't just regional authenticity, it was character development through linguistics. Hanks understood that Forrest speaking had to convey intelligence without sophistication, wisdom without education. He practiced the accent for months, even using it in casual conversations to make it feel natural rather than performed. The vocal work extended beyond accent to rhythm and cadence, creating speech patterns that made Forrest sound genuinely guileless rather than artificially slow. Hanks' commitment paid off because audiences believed they were hearing a real person. Fact 3. The ping pong ball that wasn't there. Forrest's legendary ping pong skills were pure movie magic created without a single ball. During tournament sequences, Hanks was hitting nothing but air, while sound effects and CGI added the ball in post-production. The actor had to master timing and movements of professional table tennis without any visual reference point, relying entirely on choreography and muscle memory. Coaches worked with Hanks for weeks, teaching him authentic ping pong techniques and paddle positions that would look convincing when the digital ball was added later. The computer effects team studied real tournament footage to ensure the ball's movement followed realistic physics and trajectories. Hanks' performance was so convincing that audiences never questioned the authenticity of his athletic ability, despite the fact that he was essentially playing invisible tennis. The sequence required perfect coordination between actor, director, and effects team to create one of the film's most memorable moments. Fact 4. Jenny's tragic real-life inspiration. Robin Wright's portrayal of Jenny was inspired by tragic real-life stories that made her character's journey devastatingly authentic. Wright researched the hippie movement, drug culture, and abuse survivors to understand Jenny's self-destructive patterns and inability to accept love. The character's arc from childhood abuse to adult addiction reflected real social issues that the film addressed through personal narrative. Wright brought genuine emotional depth to scenes of Jenny's lowest moments, understanding that the character wasn't just a plot device, but a representation of damaged souls seeking redemption. Her performance balanced sympathy with frustration, showing how trauma creates cycles of poor decisions without excusing harmful behavior. The AIDS subplot wasn't just period detail. It was Wright's insistence that Jenny's story reflect the real consequences faced by her generation. Wright's commitment to authenticity made Jenny more than just Forrest's love interest. She became a complex character worthy of empathy. Fact 5. The CGI history lessons. Forrest's meetings with presidents weren't just clever editing. They were revolutionary digital filmmaking that changed how movies could interact with historical footage. The effects team used cutting-edge technology to insert Hanks into real archival footage of John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, and Richard Nixon. Each presidential encounter required different techniques. Kennedy's meeting used facial replacement technology, while Nixon's scene involved more complex body tracking and lighting. Matching. The effects artists studied the original footage frame by frame, analyzing lighting conditions, camera angles, and film grain to make Hanks's insertion seamless. The technology was so new that they had to invent techniques as they went, creating methods that would become standard practice for historical recreation in future films. The presidential scenes weren't just gimmicks. They were proof of concept for digital effects that could enhance storytelling rather than replace it. Fact 6. The Running Man's real marathon Forrest cross-country running wasn't just movie magic. It was a genuine athletic achievement that required months of preparation and real endurance. Tom Hanks trained extensively for the running sequences, working with professional coaches to develop authentic marathon techniques and breathing patterns. The filming involved actual long-distance running across multiple states, with Hanks covering hundreds of miles during production. The crew used multiple techniques to capture the running scenes. Some were filmed with Hanks on treadmills, others required him to run actual distances while cameras followed in vehicles. The iconic scene where Forrest stops running was filmed in Monument Valley, but location shooting extended across the American West to capture authentic landscapes. Hanks's commitment to real running made the sequences feel genuinely exhausting rather than cinematically effortless. The physical demands were enormous, but the authenticity created an emotional connection with audiences who could feel Forrest's journey. Fact 7. The feather's philosophical journey. The opening feather wasn't just a visual effect. It was a metaphor that required 6 weeks of filming and advanced computer animation to achieve philosophical perfection. The effects team studied real feather movements in various weather conditions, analyzing how air currents, temperature, and humidity affect lightweight objects in flight. Multiple feathers were filmed under controlled conditions to capture authentic floating patterns that could be enhanced digitally. The sequence required complex mathematical calculations to create realistic physics while maintaining the poetic feeling of destiny and chance. Zemeckis insisted on the feather because it represented the film's central theme, life's random events that seem meaningful in retrospect. The technical challenge was making computer-generated movement feel organic and uncontrolled while serving the story's thematic purposes. The feather's journey from sky to Forrest's bench wasn't just pretty imagery, it was visual storytelling that established the movie's tone and philosophical framework. Fact 8. Gary Sinise's legs disappearing act. Lieutenant Dan's amputated legs weren't just hidden, they were digitally erased using groundbreaking visual effects that created seamless disability representation. Gary Sinise wore blue stockings over his lower legs, allowing effects artists to remove them entirely in post-production, while maintaining realistic body proportions and movement. The technology required careful planning for every scene. Lighting had to be consistent, camera angles needed to hide the blue screen work, and Sinise had to perform as if his legs were actually missing. The actor worked with real amputee veterans to understand the physical and emotional reality of losing limbs in combat. Sinise's performance balanced bitterness with gradually emerging hope, showing how disability doesn't define character but changes perspective on life's possibilities. The effects work was so convincing that audiences forgot they were watching digital manipulation, focusing instead on Sinise's powerful portrayal of a man rebuilding his identity. Fact 9. The chocolate box philosophy. "Life is like a box of chocolates" wasn't in the original script and became the film's most quoted line through pure improvisation and Southern wisdom. The metaphor came from Tom Hanks's collaboration with screenwriter Eric Roth, who was looking for a simple way to express complex philosophical ideas about destiny and chance. The chocolate box represented the American dream's promise and uncertainty. You know there's something good inside, but you can't predict exactly what you'll get. The line worked because it captured Forrest's optimistic worldview while acknowledging life's fundamental unpredictability. Hanks delivered it with such genuine simplicity that audiences immediately adopted it as personal philosophy. turning a movie quote into cultural wisdom. The metaphor's power came from its accessibility. Everyone understands candy, but not everyone grasps abstract concepts about fate and free will. The chocolate box became shorthand for accepting life's surprises with grace and curiosity. Fact 10. The soundtrack's cultural time machine. The Forrest Gump soundtrack wasn't just background music, it was a carefully curated journey through American cultural history that became one of the best-selling albums of all time. Music supervisor Joel Sill selected songs that weren't just period appropriate, but emotionally relevant to each scene's dramatic content. The soundtrack featured artists from Elvis Presley to Bob Dylan, creating a musical timeline that paralleled Forrest's life journey through decades of social change. Each song was chosen to enhance specific moments. Fortunate Son during Vietnam combat, Mrs. Robinson during the graduate student era, Sweet Home Alabama for Southern identity. The album became a cultural phenomenon independent of the movie, introducing younger audiences to classic American music while providing nostalgic comfort for older listeners. The commercial success proved that audiences hungry for authentic American storytelling extended beyond cinema into music consumption. The soundtrack's popularity helped establish the film's cultural legitimacy. Fact 11. The shrimp boat hurricane reality. The shrimp boat sequences weren't filmed during calm weather, with digital storms added later. They were shot during actual rough seas that created genuine danger and authentic maritime drama. The production team used real shrimp boats off the coast of South Carolina, dealing with unpredictable weather conditions that made filming both challenging and visually spectacular. Tom Hanks and the crew experienced seasickness, equipment problems, and safety concerns that added realism to the fishing sequences. The hurricane scene used a combination of practical effects and real storm footage, but the boat work was performed by actors and stunt people facing genuine ocean conditions. The decision to use real boats and actual water created visual authenticity that CGI couldn't replicate, giving the sequences a documentary-like quality that grounded the film's more fantastical elements. The maritime work required specialized equipment, experienced boat operators, and careful safety protocols that added significantly to the production budget. Fact 12. Robin Wright's aging makeup marathon. Robin Wright's transformation from teenage Jenny to dying adult required makeup artistry that spanned decades of aging without losing the character's essential identity. The makeup team studied Wright's bone structure and facial features to predict how she would age naturally, then enhance those changes for different time periods. Each era required different approaches: subtle aging for the college years, more dramatic changes for the drug-addicted periods, and finally, the gaunt appearance of terminal illness. Wright spent hours in makeup chairs for different stages of Jenny's life, working with prosthetics, contact lenses, and sophisticated aging techniques that were cutting edge for 1994. The actress had to maintain character consistency across drastically different physical appearances, ensuring that Jenny's personality remained recognizable despite the visual changes. Fact 13. The Vietnam War consultants. The Vietnam sequences weren't just historically accurate, they were emotionally authentic thanks to real veterans who served as consultants and extras throughout the production. Director Robert Zemeckis hired military advisors who had served in Vietnam to ensure that combat scenes, military protocols, and soldier behavior reflected genuine war experiences rather than Hollywood conventions. Veterans worked with actors on everything from weapon handling to the psychological reality of combat stress and survivor guilt. Many real Vietnam veterans appeared as extras in the war scenes, bringing authentic presence and emotional weight to sequences that could have felt artificial with only actors. The consultants helped create details that audiences might not consciously notice but would subconsciously recognize as genuine. How soldiers moved, talked, and reacted under stress. The veterans' involvement extended beyond technical accuracy to emotional truth, ensuring that the film honored their experiences without exploiting them for dramatic effect. Fact 14. The box office phenomenon Forrest Gump didn't just succeed at the box office. It created a cultural phenomenon that redefined what audiences wanted from mainstream entertainment. The film earned over $677 million worldwide against a $55 million budget, proving that character-driven stories could compete with action spectacles and high-concept blockbusters. The success came from word-of-mouth recommendations rather than massive marketing campaigns, with audiences telling friends and family that they had to see this unique movie experience. The film's appeal crossed demographic boundaries, attracting viewers who rarely agreed on entertainment choices. Young and old, liberal and conservative, urban and rural audiences all found something meaningful in Forrest's journey. Fact 15. The Oscar sweep that changed everything. Forrest Gump's 6 Academy Award wins weren't just recognition for individual achievement. They represented a shift in Hollywood's understanding of what constituted prestigious filmmaking. The film won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Visual Effects, and Best Film Editing, sweeping major categories while competing against critically acclaimed dramas like Pulp Fiction and The Shawshank Redemption. Tom Hanks' victory marked his second consecutive Best Actor win, establishing him as one of Hollywood's most respected dramatic performers. The visual effects win acknowledged the groundbreaking digital work that seamlessly integrated Forrest into historical footage and created Lieutenant Dan's amputated legs. Bonus fact: the sequel, that Tom Hanks killed. There's a lost Forrest Gump sequel that would have changed everything, but Tom Hanks refused to make it on moral grounds. Winston Groom wrote a follow-up novel called Gump and Company. That would have sent Forrest through the 1980s and 1990s, encountering events like the Exxon Valdez oil spill and the Oklahoma City bombing. The studio was eager to capitalize on the original's success and offered Hanks an enormous salary to reprise his role. Hanks read the proposed script and felt that a sequel would cheapen the original's legacy and exploit the character for purely commercial purposes. He believed Forrest's story was complete and that continuing it would feel artificial and money-driven rather than emotionally necessary. Forrest Gump wasn't just a movie, it was America's love letter to itself during complicated times. From revolutionary effects to cultural phenomenon, this simple story proved that extraordinary things happen to ordinary people. Hit that subscribe button for more Hollywood magic and tell us, what's your favorite Forrest Gump moment? Thanks for watching, and remember, life's like a box of chocolates.